Well, we couldn't exactly muster a guest today. I'm a little bit laid up. I almost said knocked up. I'm a little bit laid up, and my
That'd be
co-host.
news.
I mean, you can rub my belly. My co-host Kerry Gorgone is out of the state. She's somewhere else. So, what's our storyline for today? What are we going to be covering? What's important or not?
Well, first of all, we are pitching people and we do have guests booked for future episodes. So you're not always going to be stuck with us. But what are you going to do? Chris has been laid up for a week with a bum foot. So we haven't had a lot of time to plan. But today I wanted to talk about things that like kind of pieces of advice that are almost platitudes now. You hear them so often. And when I stop to think about it, I'm like, some of this is really terrible, like potentially damaging advice. So you really shouldn't listen, much less try to live by it. So anyway, I thought we could share.
Hi everyone, Tim Kitzrow from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, welcoming you to The Backpack Show. Your hosts, Chris Brogan, Kerry Gorgone, Boom Shakalaka.
Backpack Show. Thought we could share what? Hello to my dad. Hello to Joanne. Hello to Chloe. That's
Just our thoughts about some of the pieces of advice that people routinely kind of dole out or even make custom graphics of. And, that aren't necessarily the best.
So what's an example of some of this advice that might not be the best? Because I think it's a great concept, a great topic. I'm excited to cover it with you. Let's start. What do you got?
Follow your passion.
The road to hell is paved with passion, isn't it?
See? That's what I mean. So it's a terrible compass for one thing. It doesn't tell you what you're good at, what there's a market for. It's just what you like, because you could be passionate about something and be terrible at it. Right? I mean,
no, maybe. Totally. I got an email. I got a text a couple days ago from a nice lady that I know, and I never hear from her, and the only time I hear from her is when she kind of needs something. And I was like, oh well, I wonder what it'll be today. She's like, we've got a book we're working on. It's almost done, and we think it's a really solid, capable, great book. And so we want to know from you, Mr. New York Times bestseller, how to be really great at getting this book out there, because we think we have an incredible book. Yeah. And I said, well, that's passion and that's great. I am a New York Times best-selling author. It's not called the New York Times best reader list. It's called the New York Times bestseller list, which means that enough monkeys bought the book. So I said right up the bat, I said, it's utterly the opposite of what you're thinking in your little brain head right now. It is all about, do you have a platform? Can you get thousands of people with thousands of credit cards, because you can't just buy a lot and hope you get it. Can you get a lot of people to consider to buy that book in a short, compressed amount of time? That is how the bestseller list works. That's the secret. There's no secret. That's it. That's the whole magic of it. Now, I have heard that you can pay certain people very much monies and they will somehow get you to that list. But I don't know anyone personally who's done that, or at least who has copped to doing that. So follow your passion in that example is horrific. Writing a book is a lot of work. I've done 11 so far, 10 published. And I can tell you that there's so many other ways to use your time and efforts, but if it's your passion to have written a book, that's one whole thing. If it's your passion to be successful because of the book, that's a vividly different thing. Don't you think?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm not saying pick something that you hate, obviously. Like, you want to like what you're doing. You want to feel as though you're, living the life you want, which is actually what I would say. Instead of do what you're passionate about, I would say picture your life that you want. Where are you going to live? Are you going to live in the country or the city? Are you going to work outside, or do you want a desk job? Like, kind of envision where you want to put yourself, and then think about the skills that you have that would be useful to help you build that life, and kind of start to work on it. Like, find an entry point to the life you want and then go through it and just work until you get it. And if you change your mind, great. Like, a lot of people feel like they're not successful because whatever they thought they wanted when they were 21 has not worked out. But if you've changed your mind about that, and who hasn't changed their mind about a whole lot of stuff since you were 21, then that's not a failure. That is a redirection, and that's very sensible. So yeah, I just think follow your passion for one thing. It's too vague and generalized, and when you really dig into it, it's not the best advice, I guess.
And Chloe Forbes Kinlan, who we'll talk about in just one quick second, because she's one of the 2 sponsors of the Backpack Show right now, says, in a work context, I feel like follow your passion could be a really quick way to lose your passion.
Oh,
And that's
that's
absolutely true too. I see this a lot in the photography world. I will see people go, I got into this because it was my thing and I was in love with it. And now I have a job doing photography where I'm doing like weddings and event photography and all that stuff. And I hate it. And I wish I could throw my camera in a blender or something. There's a lot of that. I think that is a vivid thing that people can follow and feel. And I think it's a deep risk. So I want to recognize Chloe, which means I want to find this little thing right here.
our sponsor.
Yes. Chloe Forbes Kinlan's our sponsor. I just watched the premiere of one of her new onboarding videos on how to build an onboarding client portal and automation and all that using some of her tools, not Notion exactly, but another tool called Assembly. And it was so thoughtful. I've just gone through 2 onboardings on the client side. I've been the client to 2 onboardings. And I can tell you this, you need what Chloe is offering. Everybody needs it. Oh my gosh, I was the worst onboarded person twice in a row, 2 different companies. And all I kept thinking was, if they had Chloe, this would be the deal. You can get your free starter kit, businessops.co/backpack.
You can't just layer on Notion or any other tool on top of a broken system and a poor plan. Chloe can help you lay the foundation for success, which is what the Backpack Show is all about.
Vividly. Oh, also, and I'm working with these other people where they're working with us, like they're our support team or whatever, and they let me into a Notion, and so I'm reading through the pages and I start leaving comments like, that's not true, this isn't the way it is, blah blah, and this other guy writes back, butt out, this isn't for you.
So the people you're paying.
And I was like, yeah, so what else isn't for you is money.
Get out of our Notion.
Probably ought to be listening. So anyway, back to following our passions and stuff. So I agree with you. Passion is a horrific one. I'm a little curious about your number 2 here, because I kind of think that advice is good in a lot of ways. So let's talk about it a little bit.
Fake it till you make it. So I'm of 2 minds about this one, because I do agree you need to project confidence. So, but to me, that's different than fake it till you make it. Because confidence comes from knowledge, experience, and expertise. So confidence shouldn't be something you need to fake unless you have imposter syndrome, which is like a whole other thing. So you may need to fake it, like to overcome your imposter syndrome. But beneath the imposter syndrome, you do have what you need to succeed. Do you see what I mean? So like you're not faking it because you're the genuine article. You just maybe have like a confidence problem, which is different to me than faking it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a fine line. I think there's a lot of things where one fakes it, it's a terrible idea. I think there's a lot of times where people will overpromise and just cannot land the plane. And my counter to that, or like my method to deal with that particular scenario, is I always lead with my ineptitude. I always say, I'm just not so sure right now, but I'm going to try something. And if it doesn't work, let's all say it doesn't work, and then we'll just go to the next thing. And if the client or person that you're working with is kind of down with that, that's great. But you're right. If you walk in like, I've got this, I've handled everything, I know every scenario that ever was, I think that's bravado and cockiness. And I don't think that even counts as confidence anymore. But with the fake it part, to your point, where you redirected it a little, I got an argument with Stephen Pressfield. You know that guy, the War of Art and all that guy? He and I got in an argument because he was talking about how you have to feed your muse and how the muse is very important. And I was like, I think hard work is important, Stephen. And he goes, well, who do you think the muse visits? It's who sits their butt in the seat. I was like, okay, we can be friends again. So I think with fake it till you make it, I think that your concept of, if you use it for confidence building inside of yourself, and if you're using it kind of as, maybe just trust that you can do this if you think you have the chops, I think that's probably good. That's good feedback. I can accept that.
You have to adjust too. Like, yourself, especially a lot of women in particular will have imposter syndrome. Like my first year of law school, I remember vividly like walking down the steps thinking, oh my God, I can't do this, because I had misread the syllabus and I thought we were supposed to read 150 pages of the casebook before the first class. I friggin' did it too. But no, it was 15 pages per class, 150 pages over the term, and I like did it all in the beginning. So I graduated first in my class 3 years later, but on that the first week, I could have just gone home. So there's definitely times you have to know yourself and compensate for your own lack of confidence, perfectionism, or like, I don't know, tendency to overachieve or whatever. Know yourself, but don't just fake it till you make it as like a general policy. You know what I'm saying? Like do the work, have the chops, adjust for your confidence as necessary. And in that very qualified sense, I think it could be good.
I would say one of my battle cries in business is how hard could it be? And I feel like
Pretty
that's
hard
in the,
sometimes, though.
I feel like that's in the category of faking it, though. Like,
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. So Chloe wants to weigh in.
Sorry, go
Chloe
ahead.
wants to weigh in. My hand's off. I like the concept, but not the phrase, because fake it is imposter language. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Cool.
Exactly.
So then what do we call it instead?
Just trust yourself to make it, I would say. Trust yourself. Trust that you're going to make it.
Trust
And
in me.
Yeah, trust yourself and invest in yourself, the time and the effort it will take. And then do it.
I think
But do say yes to things. That's the other thing. A lot of women, like you've said on the show before, women will not apply to a job even if they hit 10 out of the 11 necessary requirements for it. And men will apply when they have, very few of them. Doesn't stop them. So just categorically speaking, it's not like to
numbers in general. Our male will have 11% coverage and say yes, and a woman will have 96% coverage and say no.
Yeah.
And so that's crazy.
Do say yes. I mean, they teach you that if you want to be an actor, that at every audition you get to raise your hand, and if they're like, "Who can play the trumpet?" Be like, "Yeah," and then you figure it out.
Right. Joanne says, "Practice until you become it. Focus on the practice."
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that. So in that sense, I feel like it could be valid advice, but I don't know. I think there's a lot of people going around saying, all I have to do is pretend I can do it, and that'll get me there. There's more to it than that.
Kerry, you should know that the customer is always right.
I just feel like this is a fast track to burnout, and for your employees, it is just a miserable way to be. I'm not suggesting that you argue with people, right? But followed to its logical conclusion, that advice gets employees into a bad position on the daily because they have to validate and accommodate poor behavior and unreasonable expectations. So I don't think that that's true. I feel like the customer has a right to be heard, to raise their concerns, and for you to respectfully address them. Absolutely. But beyond that, I mean, I wouldn't say they're always right. I feel like that's outdated. I would say if a customer comes in without a smile, give them one of yours. That's usually good advice to start with. That's okay. I'll hold on to that one. But yeah, they're not always right. I don't know. What do you think?
I think this falls strongly in the bucket of communication skills problems, because there's almost always a defuse that can happen. There's almost always a way to de-escalate a challenge, and there's almost always a way to make it far worse. And I think that there's just so many times where not being thoughtful, that sense of not my jobism, low-level frontline person saying this is a dumb thing and I don't like it or whatever. There's a lot of ways that you can derail an experience that could have been easily put back on track. And I think that it's a level of training that no longer exists in most experiences. My oldest kid works at a place where people drop off things that they're hoping to be donated. So it's a store called Savers, and you can bring in like your old couch or your bureau or something like that. And my kid unloads those on the backs. So there's times when you have to say no. Could be that the product is absolutely not resaleable. They're dropping off actual trash and you can't do anything with it, etc. Or sometimes it's just that they're full up on something. Like if there's way too many couches, there's just no room to put a couch. It's a physics problem at that point. It's not a customer's right or wrong problem. But there are ways to say to the customer, who's rented a vehicle or borrowed a friend's truck and who has hefted a very heavy couch into it and now is being told, take this couch somewhere else. Think about the complexity of what you have to communicate to that person who just thought it was going to be as easy. And, like their wife made him do it or something. They're driving it over. They're like, nothing is good for this person when they hear no. And
Yeah.
so I think to your point, like, I think it's a pure detail of that. Like, I think it's figuring that out that's at hand when they really say the customer's always right.
But it's compassion. It comes down to compassion because they, as the people who normally receive couches, have a good idea of what should happen next, like what options there are. The person coming in probably doesn't do it that much. So,
That's right.
you are in a position to help them, and you really ought to in that moment, I think.
I'm with you. But I think you're right. I think it's a vividly outdated thing. The customer is always right. I think it's bad advice. And I loved, you had some notes written down for us to think about. Was one of them was like, think what you're getting there. Like you're encouraging a bad response and you're letting go a good person.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it just seems, I know, especially now that we're all under a lot of pressure that maybe we weren't, 10 years ago. Everyone will tell you that when they came into the workforce was like the hardest time to come into the workforce. But legitimately, everyone's been through a pandemic. There's been through we're going to work remote, forget it, come back to the office. Like there's just a lot going on. And then in the kind of environment we all operate in now, there's just a lot of division and a lot of stress. And people are already stressed, I guess, is my point. So what we ought to be doing is finding opportunities for compassion for our employees and for our customers alike, and finding a way that we can all be a little kinder to each other instead of saying they're always right, which means you're always wrong. So act accordingly,
Zero-sum game stuff at play there as well. That someone has to be wrong and someone has to be right. There are times when someone is dead wrong, and I think it's a good thing to learn how to do. Now, let me just check here. Leslie says, after many years in retail, the customer is not always right, but you need to pick your battles.
Yeah.
That's true too. My kid has said multiple times, they'll say, customer will be totally wrong. And I will be like, yes, thank you so much. And they'll take that thing off the back and they will flip it into their little compactor and call it a day because it's just not worth the fight. And I get
you do it all the time. People argue with
Vividly.
you online and you're like, you know what? You're right.
You're so right. That is the fastest thing out of my mouth in every argument. You're so right. The minute you hear that, you should know. So you have one here that I am fascinated with, especially how much you use AI. I am so fascinated. Work smarter, not harder is bad advice in your mind.
It can be. So this is the thing. Some of these things, if you scratch the surface, they're not true. And some of them you have to scratch the surface for them to be true. So the problem with this one, I feel like, is how people use it. So for some people, work smarter, not harder means getting someone else to do it, or like passing off responsibility for something to someone else. Like to them, that's working smarter. Not necessarily, right? Work smarter, not harder. Before AI, which I do use frequently to do like menial, repetitive tasks that probably should be automated and whatever, I still organized my day according to my energy. I still figured out, what things were going to take longer, what things I do need to do research on, who I could ask for some advice about things. Like I definitely structured my work and made an effort to make note of what worked. Like if I had to do something, rarely, but occasionally I would have to do it again, I would document that process so that I wouldn't forget how to do it the next time and waste another half hour figuring it out. So all those things, work smarter, not harder. What it's not is just going, yeah, well, I work smarter, not harder. I just left it for Janine. You know what I mean? Or like whoever comes in after you. That's not working smarter, not harder. I hear people say things like that, and it doesn't apply, if you know what I mean. So it's not like it's inherently bad advice. I feel like it's misapplied, I guess.
Okay. This is like when the surprise wedding thing, and I didn't get what you were saying. I was like, surprise wedding sounds really fun, but I meant like,
I mean, it's fun for someone.
yeah, that's not, yeah. So you're saying, it sounds like you're saying, let me say it more like that what you're trying to avoid is penalizing someone for wanting to work hard.
Yeah.
You're saying be smart and work smart, but of course you should apply hard work. I don't know that that's what that expression's about. I always took that expression to mean like use your, it's like the Archimedes principle, find a lever large enough and you can move the world. That's what I thought it was about. No?
But it's true. So sometimes, yes, that's how it's supposed to be.
Okay.
But I think it's used sometimes to describe what I would consider like a patch job shortcut of some kind, if you know what I mean. Like some stuff takes time and effort, at least the first time you do it, to do it correctly.
Okay.
And you ought not to shortcut it. Like work smarter, not harder. If you're a lawyer and you want to use AI, don't just have AI write your brief for the court and turn that in without checking it. Everyone's learning that lesson. Work smarter, not harder does not mean there's no hard work, I guess. You know what I mean?
It's that like that Deloitte Australia thing where Deloitte used AI to write a report and just shipped it off to the customer for $4 million. And the customer read it and there was all kinds of spots in it where like, would you like me to rewrite this differently? And they were like, wait a minute. So
that's what I'm saying. So, okay, fine. AI can save you a certain amount of time with the correct prompting, with the correct, the way that you populate the conversation. But you still have to use some of the time you saved to check the results.
Yes.
So
Okay,
I'm against shortcuts and kind of work smarter, not harder as a blanket excuse for passing shoddy work off or for leaving your work for someone else. It might be a me problem, I guess.
We'll agree to agree, I guess. So speaking of which, I'm looking at these and I feel like this next one is also aimed at me.
Really?
You're just sitting down there far away from me right now. Like, another thing I don't like about Brogan.
You can contribute anything you want. These are just ones I wrote down.
I'm with you. I get it. Failure is a learning opportunity.
I like to win. Christopher. So
you're winning.
Failure is just
a learning opportunity. Failure is a learning opportunity. I say that all the time. I've said that on stages, on keynotes.
Yeah.
So why is failure not a learning opportunity, tough guy?
I hate failing. I mean, I don't disagree. I don't disagree it's a learning opportunity. I'm just saying I'd prefer not to learn that way. So I just did a whole leadership program at work, and it's months. You have to do a group project, and we were having a really hard time getting a group of full-time plus working adults to come together to do a project for a leadership program. It was just not at the top of anybody's list of priorities. And I was getting really frustrated. And the person in charge of the learning program, the leadership program, was like, hey, listen, it happens. There was a group one time that they just were frank about it. And they came in for the final presentation and just said, we didn't have, we admit, we take accountability. We didn't do it the way we should have. Like, here's the thing we came up with. And I just said, that's not going to be me. And she was really insulted because for her, that was like a moment that they expressed vulnerability. And I was like, they failed to plan. They failed to execute. And they are leaders in your organization, like by definition. I was just like, that's not going to be me. And that's just me. So yes, failure is an excellent teacher. I have never forgotten the few times that I have really screwed up, but I try to avoid it. That's what I'm saying. At all costs.
I feel like that's a very different turn on this all, Kobayashi Maru. My feeling is what you are saying is, sure, failure is great, but it won't be me. That's a very different statement than failure is a good learning tool.
That's true. There are no surprises, only a lack of planning. That's more like how I view it.
Okay.
But no, share your point of view from the keynote stage.
I fail all the time. And the one reason I do fail all the time is because first off, I don't mind not knowing how the outcome is going to be. And so I'll try something and see what the outcome is going to be, because I believe firmly in Senior Tony Robbins, who said failure is data, right? Like if you mess something up and you have a chance to try again and no one got hurt, then failure is data. Even spraining my foot was data. You know what you should do? Really get those boots laced up tight, you loser. That's what the failure was. I've learned
you
this.
leave off the loser part. You're not a loser.
Or, I know, but in the inner voice, 4 weeks learning experience now. But boy, am I going to be good with those firm laces now. So,
right, but you're literally suffering from the results of the failure to tie your laces or whatever. It's weeks that you have to recover, right?
Correct.
So it's sinking in for you. I guess I wouldn't rush that process of being like, well, that didn't work. Yay, I learned something, and just like skip over the part where it really hurts, because then you're not going to learn the lesson and you're not going to avoid it next time.
I just feel that failure could be a teacher. I feel like it is. Yeah. It is also a teacher that a lot of people, if you avoid failure, and that becomes your goal, is to only avoid failure, then you miss some juicy lessons along the way. Because if you're avoiding failure, it also means you're avoiding attempts. That's my fear.
Oh,
That's
yeah, like you don't try at all.
Right. The best way to not fail is to not do anything. You've heard that before, probably.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. But I also think, so anything taken to excess is bad. So that would be bad, because avoiding failure means not trying anything. You do it the other way, and you could also push yourself too hard trying to avoid it at all costs, working extra hard, coming up with contingency plans. But I think more often than not, that's going to yield better results than not attempting the hard stuff. Yeah.
Joanne says the only way scientists win is by failing and learning from it. So,
right. But they document the process, right? So that they can replicate the results once they finally succeed. Then you replicate the results and try again. A lot of people, I think, they're not introspective enough. So even if it fails, it's like really quickly on to the next thing without thinking about what happened. And I guess that's what I think is probably a mistake.
I see. I will say this, that the example you gave, if you think through it, the failure was they didn't do anything. Like they winged it and thought they could just sort of slide in on a shrimp sandwich, and it did not work that way. So they absolutely did not do what you did, which was you looked around at your team and said, listen, you big beasts, you have to behave and do some stuff. And then you whipped them all until they all behaved. And then there was suddenly a team.
Whipped them all. I told them very candidly, hey, I'm freaking out. This is not how I do stuff. I can wing it if I have to wing it, but I very much would rather not wing it.
You turned the whole thing around. I watched it firsthand. So I can say that it was a definite example of how not to fail. But I think that the other failure wasn't like they tried and they smashed against some kind of a barrier. I think they tried because they were fools. Anyway, yes, yet, and Kerry doesn't want to fail and to win. Powerful combo. Aha, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean I don't fail, by the way. But it's just
you do.
At least I know I tried everything.
Far less than me. All right, we got one last one, and then we're going to do the person of the day, and then we're going to get out of here. Never let them see you.
You should agree with me on.
I agree.
Okay.
Never let them see you sweat. I love when people see me sweat.
Let them.
I add sweat. I pour water in myself and go, look at me sweating.
It's vulnerable and human and relatable to struggle a little bit, to be nervous. And if you try to hide from your teammates or your whoever, like in your case, your audience, whatever, if you try to hide the fact that you find something scary and hard, then they're not going to be able to relate to you the same way. It's doing them a disservice, and it's doing yourself a disservice, because now you're hiding behind this mask, and it just will keep you at a distance from everyone you're trying to work with and learn from and teach.
I just lived this. I just had a situation where in a professional setting, I was asked, like, what are you even doing anyway? And I was like, oh, let me show you. And then I spent hours sending screenshots of all the things I was doing and said, there's all my sweat. You want to find an area of this where you think I should stop engaging? Because I'd be happy to. And that was the end of that. They saw me sweat, because I tend to hold a lot in. My method is kind of, pack it all in the bag. I'm very Irish. Bury the boy. So it's how it goes. So I think you and I agree on that one. I think sweat graphics are very important. Let me do my other sponsor. This is, actually, let me hit this button.
Oh, and here's our person of the day. Kaboom!
Our sponsor for this section is brought by Fazia Burke. Fazia is doing all kinds of AI stuff lately to help authors and others. Hello.
Like hiding.
Find practical grounded ways to use AI to help with their book marketing and beyond. So you go to faziaburke.substack.com and you can learn from her. Where's the button?
I love Fazia.
There we go. I don't know, but I heard that a long time ago. So my dad says, if at first you don't succeed, quimp. Which I say, what does quimp mean? And he writes back, I don't know, but I heard that a long time ago. I feel like this is in the same category as metal block. But okay, winner today is Joanne. You win a free apple today. Just go to any old store, take it. You don't have to wash it, just eat it. It's totally
fine. Run fast.
Run fast.
Wash it, and then bake it into a tartlet.
Yeah, bake it into a tartlet. It's always the way. My dad once was told or overheard teachers talking to his parents that maybe his poor penmanship and handwriting was due to a mental block. And he heard a metal block. And so my dad thought, wow, I didn't know I could write bad. I must have had a metal block in my wrist.
Kids are amazing.
Very many years.
Kids are amazing.
We've done it. Oh, there was like some other note. What's one thing you used to genuinely believe about success and you have since abandoned? And what do you think now?
Well, why don't you answer it? Because I've answered everything first. I think it's your turn.
So many things. I think a lot of people think if I work hard enough, I'll be successful. And I think that is a dangerous and unsatisfying experience because the harder you work doesn't mean anything. All it means is that you can sort of measure your level of output and then people will adjust accordingly around you. I think that success comes from trying something that's in contrast to what's around you and people going, oh, I have observed that contrast. I will now think differently about this. And then something happens, right? Why do we like a song that we like? It's a contrast from everything that's out there. Why do we like the art that we like? Because we go, wow, that's very different. A lot of the Japanese photographers that I've been really interested in are super dark black and white, super high contrast, literally contrast, black and white. And there's this woman whose name I'm going to slaughter if I say it, so I'm not going to say it, who came out in the 90s, there was this movement that the Japanese people called the girly movement, and everyone in it hates that term. It's like, this is demeaning to women, but they were like, whatever. And this woman, all her art is like super high color, super deep saturated color. And I was like, this is the most interesting stuff I've seen in a while. And I could tell you that the reason it was successful in my head, let's say, is because it was contrast from what was around me. I think success comes from that. Successfully showing someone that you could do something that they find interesting or useful and in a way that stands out from the other people around you. So now you.
No, I can't think of anything better than that.
I really can't.
I mean, I was raised on work hard and, good things will happen, basically. Like study hard and get A's and you'll go to Harvard on scholarship. Like it's complete BS. So yeah, I agree. Just hard work for hard work's sake without ever thinking about how to work smarter or who you're doing it for or what kind of life you want. I think that's all out the window. I would just say my whole view of success is to have a completely different definition than what society tells you is success. I don't care about like having the right car or the right house or the right clothes. I care about the kind of life I want to live and how I want to spend every day. That's what I think shifted for me. And I couldn't tell you when, but it did.
You've done a great job of generating the life that you want to have. And I think you've done a great job of making choices that really lean into that. And I think that that's not a thing that a lot of people think about. A lot of people go through the sleuths that they all think they're supposed to go through to learn. And I think that you've done an incredible job of going, oh, I don't like this one. And finding a new way to take on what you've taken on. So I think you're a great example of that. I was thinking back about my dad and his metal block, and I was thinking about some of his others. He had another one about apples and oranges, because if you think about it, you always ever hear apples and oranges. But the one I think that's kind of the funniest and might make him snicker to hear again is, I got to tell you.
Oh, and here's our personal.
Swooped in right at the end.
Right at the end. And then Dean Shaw shows up like that. Just
That's
like
what I'm saying.
Dean Shaw